Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to Cuberviews, episode 31. This is your host, Ian Braverman. Today I am joined by a repeat guest for the third time today, Kyle Ferguson. How you doing today?
Hi, how's it going, Ian? Good to be here.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to have you on again. Always fun to talk. I'm doing well. I hope it sounds good. I have a new microphone that I'm using, so everyone please comment if I need to change anything on the settings or anything. I'm open ears to it.
Oh yeah, it
And
is. And oh no, I need to say something. We have to give a good congratulations to Ian for getting top eight in Boston Q Party. That's
oh, thank
very
you.
good. He's a very skilled Magic player.
And you ended up second place in the standings.
I got no fifth.
Fifth
But yeah,
place.
yeah, that's just from the free play at the end too. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Almost got top eight, but
we were a big group. It was you, me, Micah, Ken, and we did really well. It was a lot of fun. And I love these cube events. I definitely plan to go to more of them. I'm planning now to hopefully go to Capital Cube Championship, which is going to be really cool in Washington, D.C.
nice.
Yeah, you've designed multiple cubes in our play group, like the Democracy Cube from episode 3, one of the early episodes of the podcast. It's a very cool cube. Everyone go check that out. And also on the episode where we talked about seeding packs on episode 18 with you, me, Justin, Brian. And of course, we played a lot of cube together at Games IRL in Avon, Connecticut. Always looking for more cube people. So if you're in the area, come check us out. Yeah, you've been on a few times and introduced yourself a couple times. So, how about today? Give us something unique that the viewers don't know about you.
I think last time I didn't mention, but I play a lot of fantasy basketball. I love the NBA. I grew up in Chicago, so my favorite team's the Bulls. And yeah, I'm in a 30 person league, dynasty league. Obviously, we draft because I can't get enough drafting in my life. On my team are some notable names are Tyrese Halliburton, Zach LaVine, Derek White, Bobby Portis, and my favorite big guy in the league, Steven Adams, one of my favorite players. A lot of fun.
If we were
Unfortunately, the
talking about
Rockets just
pickleball or
lost.
tennis, I would be able to relate here. But
No, basketball's. I think I mentioned I play basketball, but yeah, I love fantasy basketball. It's a lot of fun.
is your team doing well?
I got into the playoffs and I lost in the first round, unfortunately. But
Mm.
it was a lot of fun. I won 3 years ago. Yes, 3 years ago I won the league, which
Oh,
is
that's
great.
sick. And what do you do for work?
I'm a high school math teacher. I teach here in Hartford. I love teaching. It's great. I love teaching math. Kids definitely don't like learning math, but it's a lot of fun.
Are you excited for the summer?
Very excited. I only have 28 days left with the kids, but who's counting? Yeah, it's gonna
By
be a
the
lot of
time
fun.
this
Although
episode comes out, it might be summer for you already.
it might be, that'd be nice. Although I do teach summer school, so there's no rest for the weary.
Yeah. And today we're talking about an interesting cube that I've played a couple times. I have a lot of thoughts on it, as Kyle and I have discussed before this podcast recording and in discussion. So I'm excited to deep dive into this cube and review it. Tell us
Well,
about
I
the
mean,
cube we're talking about today.
all right, so we're talking about the control cube, a cube filled with just control mirrors and only control mirrors, which is my favorite way to play Magic. And it is controversial. It's definitely not meant as like, oh, let's bring out this cube and draft on the front. It's meant for like specific people who just like that kind of thing. And I think that there should be a lot more cubes like that, who designed for specific play patterns or people who like doing that sort of thing. And that's what the cube's designed for. So I can see why it's a little controversial.
I mean, I love drafting control at Boston Cube Party. I think I went control 4 of the 5 drafts. I'm
And I went
addicted to going
control
control.
one of the five, and I played Gruul aggro the other four times, so it's kind of a flip flop. But yeah, it's definitely a controversial cube. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've tested it a lot, and I think it's gotten better throughout the iterations that we've tested it through.
You can try to lie to us that you're a Gruul aggro player. We all know you're a reanimator player.
I have to keep people guessing. That's the point about drafting.
Just like I get everyone to think that I play Blink in every draft. And I get them with blue eye control. And an interesting question that this cube brings up is what is a control deck? Because I feel like different people will have different ideas of what control really is. Like when I think of control, the first thing that comes to mind would be like a blue white control deck, a blue black control deck, Esper control. But then there's a lot of other decks that could definitely be considered a control deck. And there are definitely colors that aren't as well known for, I would say, playing control, like green. Tell me about the inspiration behind this cube and what control means to you.
Sure. I mean, there are plenty of control decks, but I think control, the definition or the thing that I put into it, or my theory of making the cube, was that control is focusing on managing and ending your opponent's threats while gaining advantages over time. I think that's the cleanest way to say it. You have to deal with what your opponent's doing and slowly gain an advantage, be that card advantage, mana advantage, deck advantage, life total advantage. That's just what control is. And there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's some decks that lean towards maybe control or mid range. That's kind of the gray area. Like it's Jund a mid range deck, is it a control deck? In some cases, it's more mid range, where you're dealing like Tarmogoyf, which isn't a control card at all. Or sometimes it's much more controlling with cards like Dreadbore or even Olivia Voldaren. It's definitely a murky area, but control is about having as many answers to as many problems as you think, and eventually killing your opponent through that advantage.
And when every deck is a control deck, what does the gameplay look like? Like, I feel like there's a variety of different control decks that come into play, like you mentioned, things like wilderness reclamation decks, like that's a control deck, or ramp style control decks that try and ramp into big control pieces, like let's say an Ugin or something like that, or lands decks that control the opponent through different unusual means, like a Maze of Ith or something like that, or trying to stifle their lands through strip mine kind of control. Tell me about the different variety of control decks in here.
So there's a lot of variety. Like you said at the stop, there's like blue white control Sultai. I tried to make it as flexible as possible with the cards in the cube, so you can go whatever way you want to, depending on how the draft goes and how what your style control deck is. So there's not really archetypes in this cube, as there's much like small packages, like you said, Wilderness Reclamation, that lead to like a flavor of your deck or the color combos. But it's very much so land go. That was one of the main philosophies I had designing the cube, was that feeling of playing the control mirror. You play land, say go to your opponent, and then eventually someone has to blink first, and then that's where the fun starts. But yeah, the main feelings in this cube instead of archetypes are the packages I had, like Wilderness Reclamation or the new one, Shadow of the Second Sun, that's like it, where you can get mana advantage on tapping your lands, making sure you're all on your opponent's turn. There's other smaller packages that we're going to talk about later, like Miracles, Iconic Control, Ketramos, which is a new card, which is a lot of fun, very powerful in this cube. Also a lot of ways to exile it, but it's very strong. Jund, like I talked about earlier, lands, Mystic's Master, Gear Hulk, everyone's favorite deck, Lantern Control, which we'll talk about later too. Flash, Reanimator, Domain. There's a bunch of cards that work together in small packages that help your deck come together. But mainly it's about crafting how you want to manage your opponent's mana, life total, the spells on the stack, and all the threats that they manage to put together on the battlefield.
Yeah, and when I drafted this cube last, I drafted like a five color kind of mid rangey deck with cards like Niv and Golos, which I don't think are actually even in the cube anymore. But it's an interesting landscape, like you said, about how some control decks can be good against other control decks. And it's kind of like a wide variety and of environment of different types of control decks. Like, for example, a traditional blue-white control deck is going to be really good when it can make use of its wraths, or it can make use of its counter spells, or its targeted one-for-one removal. But then some other types of control decks, like the five-color Niv deck that I mentioned, that's really good at getting two-for-ones, accruing a lot of value. A blue-white control deck might have issues with something like that. So it's a really interesting rock, paper, scissors, which we'll get more into.
That was the main list. So when I first started sitting down and making this cube, it looked a little different. It looked a lot different because you think of all the control cards that you want to bring in, like removal against aggro or things to interrupt combo, but that's not here. So I put all my control cards that I like in here, and then I was like, oh, that's terrible in this environment. Take it out. What's good? What's still good in here? What's still a control card that would be good against other control decks? And actually, there's a lot of traditional sideboard cards in control mirrors that are just in this cube that I think are very powerful, like Red Elemental Blast, Seed Time, which is a fun one. There's just a bunch of counters and a bunch of things that feel like control, but aren't necessarily like you would play in your standard control deck.
Yeah. And Another interesting thing about this cube is the ratio of cards. This cube has 90 blue cards and then 30 of the other colors, white, black, red, green. And also with the multicolor section, it's definitely heavily focused on blue. Same with the lands, much higher ratio of blue dual lands. Tell me about the ratio of different colors in here. Do most decks end up being mostly blue, or are there decks that don't end up paying blue at all? Tell me about what kind of decks look like.
Sure, yeah. First, there is Golos, so you can still have fun with that, Ian. Don't worry.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
Golos, there's Bring to Light, all the fun multicolor stuff, Leyline Binding. Don't worry, you can still play your five color poop deck.
That's what I want to do.
Good, but in terms of the colors, so I knew when I make design this cube, I wanted to have a lot of counterspells. So I knew I wanted to have a lot of blue cards. It's tough to manage all the efficient counterspells while having the same amount of color diversity. Because I knew I wanted to have a lot of counters, be powerful, and then be effective. But having a bunch of the other colors represented would like lower their availability in cubes. So I decided to make blue the primary color. Blue is more than half the cube in terms of lands, spells, and creatures. And yeah, most people are going to be playing blue just because that's where all the cards are. That's where, like you said, all the multicolor cards are essentially. There are multicolor cards that aren't blue, but they're fewer. But you don't have to play blue. Like, I think not last time we drafted, but the prior one, the winner was a basically green red splashing a couple other minor things, control deck with lands and removal, and it ran over people. It was a very strong deck, very efficient because no one was really going for those colors. Everyone was fighting for Esper control for some reason. And it was a very powerful, going down a different avenue than people expect with counters, very powerful. And I think every time we drafted it, there's been like 1 to 3 people that don't play blue. And those decks are just as good, just as powerful, and go in a different direction can give you an advantage on your opponents because they're not expecting it. And some cards are really bad if you're not playing blue, like Gainsay, or like I said, Pyroblast, or certain other things that are targeting blue cards. They just won't even affect you at all.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree. Like this cube is called the control cube. And like we mentioned, I think people go into this cube with certain expectations. A lot of people would go into this cube and say, well, it's control. I'm going to play blue. And you've definitely catered to that by having 90 blue cards in the list. But people have their expectations. So they're going to draft in a certain way. They're going to expect other players to be playing blue. They're going to be expecting other players to have a lot of counter spells or playing at flash speed. And so by getting into a color combination like red green that plays a totally different role of a type of control deck, you could definitely catch someone off guard. And if they've only played the cube once before or never played the cube before, they might say, oh my gosh, I did not draft to beat this deck. What do I do? Yeah, in my experience, it really feels like there are three main axes that decks tend to play on in here. Like I mentioned, there is the instant speed decks that are always trying to hold up mana and play in their opponent's turn. That would be something like a blue white control, a Murktide deck, a Wilderness Reclamation deck. But this cube doesn't really have an aggro deck that's going to kill you really fast. So instead, the rock, paper, scissors is instead there might be another type of control deck that's looking to slam big threats and use things like hand attack, like Thoughtseize, Inquisition of Kozilek, to defend yourself, to be able to play around the counter magic and kind of like make them have it. Decks like Jund, ramp decks. And then, like we mentioned, there are the decks that are trying to play on a completely different axis, I would say, to get around the counter spells completely. Things like lands decks that don't even cast spells or lantern control decks. Tell me about that.
sure, yeah. So there's a lot of different avenues you can go. And I wrote in this overview of the cube on Cube Cobra. Also, make sure you vote for it on CubeCon this year. Hopefully, I'll get in. Uh,
CubeCon.
let's go. There's different axes, and I wanted to make sure the colors felt still in their color identity, but while offering you different tools and competing against other things. So, like black, like you said, has hand disruption. Thoughtseize might be the most powerful one drop in the cube. Just getting information on what your opponent has and taking away what you consider to be the hardest to deal with threat or answer is very strong. Also, black has what I think is possibly the most powerful effect in the cube, which I've been thinking about toning down. Cards like Gonti and Outrageous Robbery. Exiling the top card of your opponent's deck is and stealing their threats is very powerful. Which leads me to another axis of the cube, which is normally in a game of Magic, you have removal spells, creatures, and that's your limited deck. Right? You have creatures, ways to remove your opponent's creatures, some other things, but that's basically it. In this, you have to think about a lot of different things. Creatures, how am I going to deal with them? How am I going to deal with planeswalkers? Because you don't have much creature pressure on your opponent's planeswalkers. Right? Normally, they play like a 4-mana Elspeth. You can attack it down with any creature you have, but there's not as many of those running around. So you got to figure out how to deal with those. You have to figure out how to deal with artifacts and enchantments, where there are more of in this cube than a traditional cube that gain as much value over time as planeswalkers do. And there's a lot of different axes to manage it, as well as managing your opponent's counters, their sorcery spells, all that fun stuff. And there's two big things in this cube that you have to manage on top of all of that, which is your library and your opponent's graveyard. Elixir of Immortality Control is in this cube, which is everyone's favorite Pro Tour deck. And being able to recur your deck and not drawing out is a very powerful effect. Cards like Endurance, Elixir of Immortality, my favorite Pauper card, Clear the Mind, is in this cube in my Turbo Fog Pauper deck. Being able to recur your graveyard and manage your inevitability of your opponent drawing out, exiling their graveyard so they can't recur is another big thing that you have to think of in the long run in this cube. So while you're drafting it and all the rock, paper, scissors going on, there's several different axes of how you're going to manage the different threats and what yours is good against versus what your opponent's doing. And I think that's what leads to the cool and unique aspects of this cube, how different you have to think about and evaluate the cards. Like you said, if someone hasn't drafted it before, they may not evaluate it properly. And I think every time we've drafted it, every card has looked different to me in terms of how powerful it is or how high I should take it. Like the first time we drafted, I was like, oh, obviously I'm going to take like Fendilian Click because that's like one of the most powerful cards in Magic. But a card like Arboreal Grazer just might be better than that in this cube to give you mana advantage. And it's wild the different avenues that we've gone to, seeing what's good, what's working, and what's not working. It's really fun, and it's a very unique Magic experience.
And like you were mentioning, because there's not really as much of an aggro deck and it's so focused on the control decks, I feel like the removal has to play a different role. Like you mentioned, instead of it being the removal being, oh, I have to kill their 1-drop on turn 1 to not die really fast. Instead, removal that is much more flexible, I think, becomes really important. So I would much rather have in this cube, for example, a Kolaghan's Command that can hit artifacts, small creatures, be a 2-for-1. And if I don't need the removal at that moment, be able to do other things like make them discard a card or get a creature back, than like a Fatal Push that only hits small creatures and is so much more limited. While it might be more efficient, you don't get that extra value, which in a control mirror is so important. But at the same time, it's almost two heads of the coin. Like being able to have cheap interaction is really nice in this cube too, especially with cheap counterspells, like having a Spell Pierce to win a counterspell war, or if they counter your removal spell, that you can have the second one to back it up. That's also really nice. Tell me more about the removal in this cube and how it fits in here.
Fatal Push is actually what I was planning to talk about in the removal section. I think it's a good look into how you should think about removal. So Fatal Push, like you said, is 1 mana. A big thing when I was making this cube is I wanted efficient things to feel good and effective and straightforward. And as you spend more mana on things, it should give you more of an advantage. So like you said, Fatal Push, 1 mana, kills a creature, does this job everyone knows. Kolaghan's Command, like you said, 3 mana, can do a lot more things. Or like Teferi, 5 fairy. It can remove any permanent. It can draw cards on tapped lands. And it's 5 mana. It has much powerful effect. But it's less efficient, so your opponent has more time to counter. They can hold up 3 counter spells. And managing that efficiency to value ratio is very interesting and challenging to do in this cube. What are you going to remove? So like Fatal Push, for example, like I talked about. Are you going to kill your opponent's Fairy Mastermind with it on turn 2 if they play it? Right? That's a very efficient threat to it. Do you save it to kill a creature land, which are some of the most scary threats in this cube? And killing a creature land for 1 mana is a huge blowout. Do you save it to turn 4 to kill your opponent's Oracle Moldai, and you save a fetch land? So you can kill it with a Fatal Push. You fetch beforehand to thin your deck. Do you save it as a thing to trigger Revolt? How do you manage that? And that's just with Fatal Push, one of the most straightforward cards in Magic. And that's what a lot of the removal is. trying to figure out when's the best time to use it. Do I use it in this situation? Do I need to use it? It's much different than a normal game of Magic where like, oh, I have removal, I kill my opponent's creatures, and then I play my threats. That doesn't happen as much in this cube. You have to pick your spots, pick your battles on when you're going to play certain effects, and you have the time for that, right? There's not going to be someone run you over, like we said. There's no aggro deck. So drawing cards, getting your hand, preparing what you need to do is what this cube's all about.
Yeah. And like we mentioned, I feel like the removal spells have to play a different role for another reason, in that a lot of the creatures in here get a lot of value. Like they have ETBs or leave the battlefield effects, or they can be played at instant speed. For example, playing a Swords to Plowshares on a Solitude that's already exile your thing does not feel very good. Same with doing it on an Aetherling that they can pay a blue to return it to its owner's hand. You have to be really careful about the timing that you're using the removal spell when they can bring it back to your hand. But at the same time, there are creatures in here that you need to remove or it's going to be bad for you. Something like a Murktide Regent. 5 blue blue for like a 7/7 and 8/8 can become bigger and delve. So if they get like a turn 3, 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, you better have removal that isn't a Kolgon's command to deal 2 to it to deal with something like that.
No, you're right. Yeah, and a lot of the creatures, I mean, it's a control cube, so the creatures in it have to lend themselves to either removal, card advantage, or threats that are known traditionally in a control deck. Like Chrome Host Sheet Shark is one of the scariest threats in this cube because you made 3 mana 2/4. Although it doesn't do anything when it enters, it's just 3 mana 2/4. It doesn't do anything. So you got to answer that. And another reason, like we talked about earlier, is making sure the removal is cheaper. So if your opponent plays a Glorybringer on turn 5, or even a Solitude on turn 5, exiles your guy, you're down the exchange, right? You swords it, that's only 1 mana, which is you open mana to cast a Sphinx's Revelation, or to cast Intrude on the Mind, or Cryptic Command, or Blue Sun Zenith, or Brain Surge. There's a bunch of different card draw effects you can play after you deal with their expensive threat. So managing how are you going to do that, the mana you have left after, so you can recur your lost advantage they gained is a big back and forth rock, paper, scissors on how the meta goes on it. Do you kill your opponent's Glenolin or Archmage, which you know is going to counter your Teferi later on, which feels really bad to Lightning Bolt the 2/1 that's going to come back as a 1/1. So there's a lot of those back and forth going on over here. And like you said, they have to be flexible. So a card like Prismatic Ending, great. Sorcery speed can get rid of your opponent's artifacts, enchantments. Being that flexible, exiling stuff like exiling Ketramos is a very important part of this cube.
Yeah, absolutely. And this cube has 102 creatures in it, or about 28% of the cube. Comparing it to something like the regular cube, that's like a mid power, low power, very creature focused cube, being 50% creatures. Tell me about how the gameplay feels when it's not as creature focused and other types of threats or win cons like planeswalkers or big X spells that can exile your library or decks that can grind it out with something like an elixir of immortality. Tell me about that.
Sure, yeah. So I actually feel like I have too many creatures in the cube. I've been trying to decrease them because I definitely want to feel more control mirrors, but you have to have some ways to end the game. You have to have threats that you put on the board and be like, all right, deal with this or I win. And the biggest issue that comes up with people asking me on this cube is, oh, it's a control cube. Oh, every game goes to time then, huh? Everyone draws all their matches, which is, I think you can say, I don't think we have any drawn matches with this cube. All the matches feel very interactive, but someone always comes out with victory, which is why I like having the creature count that I do, even though I definitely think normal control decks have less. Like you're saying, planeswalkers, there's a bunch of planeswalkers you have to deal with, and putting creature pressure on them is very important. Stuff like Obnixilis, drawing a card every turn, or Sandra drawing a card every turn, or Garruk Relentless, killing your creature and then searching up for the powerful threats in your deck. Managing that is very important.
Yeah, I think that it almost comes back to the expectations that we were talking about. I think people hear control cube and one of their first thoughts is, oh my gosh, we're going to go to time all the time. And so I think people maybe play a little bit faster just naturally because they're afraid of going to time.
Oh yeah, and people naturally they're like, oh, it's a control cube, and you should be cognizant when you're playing this. I'm not going to play a land on turn 1, think for 10 seconds, and then pass. That's not how you play control. You play a land and you pass because you know what you're going to be doing. You're not going to do anything that turn. If you want to keep consistent and like think for 5 seconds each turn before you pass, so you don't throw any tells, that's fine. But you shouldn't be spending all the time thinking about your threats because it'll lead to a lot of problems, like overthinking your thoughts, like, oh, I should play this, and then making mistakes because you're overthinking, wasting time, calling slow play on your opponent. But all of these things really haven't been that big of an issue for a couple reasons in my theory when I was designing this cube. First of all, I didn't want to have a lot of high CMC cost cards. Cards that would just like make it so like, oh, on turn 4 I have 5/5 drops. Like that's not fun to play. The majority of this cube is under 3 CMC or less. Over 70% of the cube you can cast by turn 3. A lot of them are counterspells because I have over 50 counterspells in the cube, but you can get your threats out, your answers out efficiently without having to think too much time. Also, I'm trying to limit card searching because the thing that wastes time is searching for cards. I thought at one point to take out fetch lands, but I think they're very important in cards like Fail Push or organizing your mana properly with Surveil lands or Tri lands. I think it's just a very necessary part for a control deck, but there's very few of them. Very few card searching. A thing that doesn't seem that straightforward is I want to limit board resets. There's not a lot of wrath in this cube. There's only a few. There's Supreme Verdict. There's obviously Terminus for the Miracles deck. Burn Down the House. There's also Subterranean Tremors, which is also sides as an artifact removal. But other than that, that's the only wrath. The removal is 1-for-1, or like we talked about earlier, Kolaghan's Command, like Fire Arts, which can do something else, so that we don't have a lot of major setbacks. Farewell is a fun card. I love Farewell. I love casting it and doing everything. But when you cast Farewell, it just stalls maybe an inevitable outcome that was already happening, or it's just not a long-term fun gameplay experience. So I remove all the things that just set back the whole board and reset everything.
No
I think
upheaval in
that
here?
no upheaval, God no. I mean, that would be a fun card, but actually no, it wouldn't be a fun card. That card would be so not fun in this cube because first of all, there's not a lot of artifact producing mana or things that aren't lands. So it would just be like, all right, let's start the game over. Terrible.
And you mentioned counter spells there. There are a lot of counter spells in this cube, like you said. What would you say are some of the best counter spells in a cube like this? Like, of course, free counter spells like Force of Will are going to be really strong, but I feel like something like a Spell Pierce that can help you win a counter spell war, or specific counter spells for situations like a spell snare that can counter something with exactly mana cost 2. So on turn 1, you're protected if you're on the draw. Tell me about what counter spells have really overperformed in here.
Sure. I mean, there's the obvious ones, like you said, Force of Will, stuff like actual counterspell is still very good in this cube. Just 2 mana straight counter anything. Spell Pierce, like we talked about earlier, is very good. Then there's other things that are good in this cube that wouldn't be normally good, like Burnout, everyone's favorite counterspell. Counter an instant that's blue and you get to draw a card. Very powerful. Gainsay, not normally a cube staple. It's very strong in this cube because, like I said, more than half the spells in this cube are blue. Yeah. Spell Pierce is great because most of the cards are non-creatures. Negate's powerful in here for the same reason, right? There's a Jace's Defeat in here. Better Gainsay. There's a lot of different counter spells, and there's a lot of general counter spells. Some that are worse because they cost a little bit more mana, like Cryptic Command, Mystic Confluence, even Discontinuity, which I consider a counter spell, are much more flexible in what you're targeting with them, but they cost a little bit more mana. So you have to figure out which one is better for that situation. But yeah, there's all the things from Force of Will being free to Mystic Confluence and everything in between.
I will say some of the most fun I'm having in Magic is when I'm holding up a Mystic Confluence and I just know my opponent's going to play something big and I can counter unless they pay 3, draw 2 cards, or bounce their board at the end of the turn. Like, oh, I love that card. It makes me feel so good.
See, that's what I'm going for. Like Archmage's Charm, stealing your opponent's 1 mana spell, holding that up at the end of turn. All that fun control stuff that you normally do. Casting Cryptic Command, counter drawing. Nothing feels better than that, in my opinion. So.
And in my experience, it feels like control breaker cards, cards that can get around the counter spells, tend to be really powerful in this cube. Like, I know you've had a few that you've cut over time, cards like Field of the Dead, Coma, being uncounterable. What are some of the most powerful cards in the cube, and what kinds of effects really shine in an environment like this? Like, a few that I picked out that seem really great that I've enjoyed playing with are like Null Drifter. I love me a mole drifter. Come on. This one you can't blink, unfortunately, but it is on cast draw too. So you get around the counterspell. Or one of my favorite cards ever, of course, Ephemerate. It's instant speed, 1 mana, blank a removal spell, and get extra value. Like that's so good. Ghost Vacuum coming down on turn 1 and then just being constant graveyard hate, stopping things like Snapcaster Mage, and then being a win con late game. Those seem really good. And then Uro and Flage, turn 3 plays that can get you some sort of value and then come back over and over again. Those are so strong too. And like Croxa also, of course. What have been some of your favorite cards and most powerful cards in this cube?
Oh, some of my favorite cards. So first of all, Coma is not fun. We had that in the first iteration and it ran over the games.
Justin destroyed us with that card. Oh my God.
And green, I toned down a little bit too. I took out exploration. I took down some of the more broken stuff in green, which also led to the deck just having like 300 mana, casting Coma, holding up 5 counter spells. It was oppressive. Not counterable threats are something that I thought would be fun to have in this cube at first to increase diversity, but most of them are turn out are not fun. Because if there's 50 counterspells in this cube and you want people to play counterspells, so put in uncounterable spells. Currently, there are only 3 uncounterable spells in the cube, one of them being Supreme Verdict, which is, a wrath that's not a threat, so I think that's a control staple, so that's going to stay in. The other two being Pearl Lake Ancient, which is a 7 mana flash creature that has some evasion by allowing you to bounce 3 lands and return to your hand, but overall, not too scary of a threat. And one of my favorite instances in the cube, which is Commence the Endgame, which is draw 2 cards and amass X, where X is the amount of cards in your hand, which is a powerful control finisher that you play on your opponent's end step when you got 6 mana. Get a creature, draw 2 cards, can't be countered. A lot of fun. Those cards really shine in here. As well as there's some other fun cards that shine in this cube, like Plow Under, which is a recent addition, which is Ian's favorite Magic card. He loves playing with it and playing against it.
I've had my life ruined by that card in Vintage Cube like 10 years ago or whatever it was. That card is so crazy.
Okay, there's a lot of old Vintage Cube cards that aren't in Vintage Cube anymore. Like I said, Glenda Lindra earlier, Aetherling, which is the most iconic control finisher, which is playable in this cube. It seems a little slow, and it is slow. But if you land an Aetherling and they can't remove it right away, it's basically the clock that they have to deal with, and there's no way getting around that. There's not a lot of other countable threats. There was Mistcutter Hydra in here earlier, which was also just not fun. Loxodon Smiter was in an initial iteration, which is not good for the cube environment. It's not a control card either, so that got out of it. There's a lot of different testing and feeling my way around what feels control, what answers do I want, because I want some non-counterable things, because I want you to have answers that aren't just counterspells late in the game. So having the few of them that are there seems important, but I don't want them to be oppressive.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. And because there really isn't an aggro deck in this cube, it kind of allows some unusual kind of control decks and decks that probably wouldn't be able to exist if there was a really powerful aggro deck like Lantern Control. It feels like in this cube, actually, its pieces aren't bad on their own, which is interesting. Cards like Codex Shredder, being able to mill your opponent for 1 every turn, is honestly a real clock when everyone's playing counterspells and card draw and the games can go long. Just mill your opponent 1 every turn is pretty good. Lantern of Insights can actually have some funny cross synergy with things like miracles or counterbalance to be able to set up the top of your deck with things like fetch land, shuffle away, use like brainstorms. Tell me about how a deck like Lantern Control is able to exist in this environment, because I haven't really seen that work or tried in many other cubes.
Yeah, it's definitely as much as this cube is controversial, that deck has also been controversial. It's been the controversy throughout the years. People either love it or hate it. And honestly, in this cube, it feels about mid. I've drafted it once online with 8 people, and I was the one who drafted the Lantern Control deck because I wanted to see how good it would be. I ended up going 2-1 after losing the first round, and it felt good. It didn't feel oppressive, but having Lantern, like you said, Coda Striker is just a win condition on itself in Control Mirror. Milling for 1 every turn is not incidental in this cube. It is very much so a win condition, and Coda Striker's other effect, returning something from your graveyard, a 5 mana regrowth, is also very strong in this cube. So all the pieces I got to work together, as well as Trinket Mage is a great card in this cube, as well as Bright Glass Gearhulk might be the best card in Lantern Control. Just getting up 2 1 mana artifacts or enchantments or creatures is just so powerful.
That card is
And
great. I've
oh
really
yeah,
liked it in my trinket cube.
so much fun. And it's not like, and it's 4 mana. It's not oppressive. It's a good body on its own. You have to deal with it. And yeah, I think Lantern Control is at a good place in this cube. It feels like I want to keep it in. I want it to be there for people who want to play it. If people are too against it in the cube, you're like, oh, I play that cube and Lantern Control's there, so I'm not going to play it. It's not an oppressive force. There's only one of each card. Your opponent's not going to always have it on turn one. It's more of a one of the different things I talked about earlier, like having Wilderness Reclamation or Ketramos. It's one of those things that, like, oh, it's a package in a control deck, and if they have it out, it's their testing against them. In Cube, you don't see all the cards all the time. It's not going to be the thing where your opponent's like, oh, they have Ensnaring Bridge, they have Pyxis of Pandemonium, they always have Lantern Always. It's not. It's managing the game and then having that in your deck as well. It's another tool in their toolbox, which I think is very important. And definitely, if it comes to the ground, I'll cut it. I don't have a problem with cutting it. The main reason I would cut it is time restraints, because I feel like that's the one deck that I'm actually worried about going to time. Just like every Lantern Control player, it's not the player who's playing it, who's used to it. It's the opponent who doesn't know what's happening and trying to figure out the way around it, and just takes a lot of time. That's the only reason I would cut it. It is not oppressive in this cube. Playing a 1 mana artifact that doesn't do anything a lot of the time is not what you want to be doing. So if you like managing it, if you think that it's what you want to be doing and you can overcome the limitations it has, then more power to you. And I want it to be something in this cube as well. You also asked me about cards that are powerful in this cube. Nephalia Drownyard is a card that's going to be in this cube forever.
That's a
How do you
card
feel
we've
about that
had
card?
controversy about before, the two of us talking. I think it's too good, but I understand it's slow. You have to be blue black. Oh, mill three every turn. Oh my gosh, that card can be so annoying.
It is annoying, and I did take Field of the Dead out. The only reason that that's in and Field of the Dead's out is because that card's a control card. Field of the Dead's a combo mid-range card. Nephalia Drowned is like, oh, this is a control finisher. And it's not a free thing to do. It's 4 mana every turn, which isn't nothing. With all the threats, all the opponent's counterspells, all their instant speed stuff that they can do, tapping 4 lands to mill 3 is not powerful. But it does gain an advantage over time, like we were talking about earlier. And there's plenty of ways to kill lands in this cube. There's 5 land destruction lands like Tectonic Edge, Field of Ruin. There's also cards like Cleansing Wildfire that just kill a land. There's a bunch of ways to answer it, a bunch of ways to blank it out. So I think it's fine in the cube. How do you feel about Veil of Summer in the cube? Does that seem oppressive?
Honestly, but back to Nephalia Drownyard, Restless Reef might just be more powerful. I mean, land that can mill 4 on attack. Sure, it's more able to be attacked, but I didn't realize when I was playing some control mirrors in Boston Cube Party, I totally have a new appreciation for mana lands. Oh, it's so hard when your win con is like a powerful planeswalker and you want to tap out for your big Teferi and then they have a Restless Reef. How do you deal with that? It's so good. And a lot of removal spells don't hit lands. Oh, it's strong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's 26 mana lands in this cube. So
wow,
that's
26.
Another. Every dual color, there's 2 of them, and then there's a lot of single colored ones. So everyone's favorite in here, including cards like Mirrex is in here and Fountain Port. There's a lot of lands that make creatures. So, but yeah, I could see Risen Reef being, or Restless Reef rather, a little oppressive. There's a lot of instant creature removal. So I feel like in this cube it's less oppressive, but definitely managing like, oh, I'm going to play this 5 mana spell, even though they're tapped out, but they have a creature lurking in their lands. Is definitely something you have to be wary of in this cube because there's a lot of them.
Veil of Summer is 1 mana Cryptic Command.
Yeah, it is a very strong card in this cube. I'm not going to argue with that. It might be too good. It might just be at the right spot. So far, I don't feel like it's been too oppressive. Honestly, I feel like, yeah, it just feels like a normal counterspell most of the time.
So I noticed looking at the list that there are a few cards that I feel like would be what I would consider basically anti-control cards.
Sure.
And I don't include some of them in my Bant cube also. For example, Little Teferi, being able to shut down instant speed. That just feels bad. When you're in a control mirror or a cube that has so much control and somebody plays a card for 3 mana that says you can't play instant speed, which I don't know, if you're at a control deck in this cube, you might have 10 counterspells for all we know. That just feels bad. Or Narset, Parter Vale, shutting off extra card draw. Like, ooh, that just doesn't seem fun. I see that you haven't included those kinds of cards. Tell me about the line in this cube of balanced and fun versus powerful. And where does Veil of Summer fit on that line?
Veil Summer is one of the top end cards in the cube. I feel like there's a top tier in this cube. I feel like Veil of Summer's there. I feel Force of Will's up there. The Blast are up there. Just things that are cheap on mana that are good interaction. Those are some of the top end. Teferi and Narset are not in this cube, nor will they ever be in this cube.
Thank you.
Because don't worry, I love those cards. First of
Oh,
all,
I love them too, but ooh, God.
they do no, they do not feel. Same with Oko Thief of Crowns. Oko is not in this cube because first of all, 3 mana planeswalkers. I think they're very powerful, and they're even more powerful in this cube by the fact that you don't have creatures to attack them with most of the time. If you do something on turn 2 and your opponent taps on turn 3, you will not have a creature most of the time. So it just runs over the game, no matter what, even if you can't do anything about it. Them being oppressive is just too much. Like, a realistic planeswalker to be in this cube is Liliana the Veil, which I've considered bringing in and out of this cube. I had it in the first iteration, and I took it out because of my 3 mana or less planeswalker rule is gone. No 3 mana or less planeswalkers will ever be in this cube, except maybe Baby Jace. I'll
Baby
consider
Jace.
that. Baby Jace Valerian. Maybe. He's not in the cube right now, but I think it's a little too weak for this
I
cube,
see
honestly.
JV Jace. That's Jason's Prodigy.
Oh, that's Baby Jace. I'm talking about, what is Jace, the 3 mana Jace? What's his
Oh,
nickname?
Jace Bellerin?
Mhm.
Party Jace?
Oh, it's Party Jace. That's right,
That card
Party Jace.
sucks.
I love Party Jace. It's 3 mana Ancestral.
That's true.
But no 3 mana or less planeswalkers. Too oppressive. Not fun. There's no fast mana. There's no like Soul Ring. There's none of the power stuff. I just cut Exploration. That was one of the last cuts I did just because too much mana advantage in this cube is just too strong. Like I said earlier, Aurelian Grazer, Birds of Paradise, Utopia Sprawls is a very powerful card in this cube. Just getting that mana advantage so you can pick your answers and threats is just so powerful. So none of that will ever be in here. You got to get your mana advantage the slow way with Explore, like a normal Magic player. And then cards that provide too much mana, like Mana Drain will never be in here, Ancestral. There's just cards in here that are too powerful, I think, that just don't lead to a fun level. I want this to be an interactive experience where you feel like you have, no pun intended, control over the situation, and you can do what you want to do. That was the main thing. I want you to have fun. I want you to draft your deck in the way that you want to play your control deck, and knowing that it's all going to be controlled mirrors. That's what I want. I don't want oppressive cards like Bowmasters will never be in this cube. Ian loves that card, and it's sad to see that it's not in this cube, but
It's one of the worst cards ever.
but that'll never be in there. What are some other cards that are on the ban list?
No Shieldred in here.
No Shield. Shieldred is a maybe. It wasn't the list earlier, but the 4 drop in black is actually very already thick with Grief, Gonti, and Scavenger Regent, the new card from Cons, which is an infinite loop, so you don't mill yourself out.
Oh, yeah, the Omens. That's good.
The Omen, yeah, Omens are strong in this cube. You can just cast it for 2 mana, go in your deck, and you'll never deck yourself out. But yeah, cards like Orcus Bowmasters, as well as Psychic Frog. God, no Psychic Frog will ever be in here. Just low cost threats just aren't a place in this cube. The only really low cost threat that'll ever be in here are Delver Secrets, just because it's such an iconic control staple.
Yeah. And before we jump into the pack one, pick one, where is all the reanimation in this cube? I can't believe you don't have reanimate, animate, dead. What's going on here? What happened to you?
See, I mean, there is Gifts Ungiven Unburial Rights for Atraxa, if that's what you're into.
No,
Gifts
I want
Ungiven.
that turn one reanimate, baby.
No, there's no early reanimate. The earliest reanimate, I think, is actually Gifts Ungiven. I don't think I have one that's the Eldest Reborn, Elspeth Conquers deck, all 5 mana, reanimates. Connive Concoct is also 5 mana. Yeah, all the reanimates are 5 or more.
Wow, you really held yourself back.
I mean, there's Arcana Cruelty, there's Murktide Regent, there's Timeless Dragon. Heck, Reanimated Solitude's very powerful in this cube, so.
Yeah. Though turn one grief reanimate.
No, there's Turn 1 Grief Ephemerate, though, which is why I've thought about cutting Ephemerate. It's on the cusp. I love Ephemerate in this cube. There are the Evoke Elementals, and I like the Evoke Elementals in the cube. I think they provide great interaction that is not too big in this cube, but Ephemerate's on the chopping block for that reason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't touch my child, ephemerate. And let's jump into a pack one, pick one here. I'll read it off. We got Undercity Sewers, which is the blue-black surveil land. those lands. I think everyone knows proven to be really powerful. Chrome Host Seed Shark had to be cut from Proliferate Cube. That card was way too good in Proliferate Cube, and it's a house. 2 and a blue for a 2/4 flyer and blue that whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you incubate X for X the mana value of that spell. This card can get out of hand so fast, and it's really good. Restless Fortress, which is the black-white man land, as we were just talking about man lands from Wild's Dream that drains your opponent when it attacks. Subtlety, which is the blue, like memory lapse-ish free elemental from the Modern Horizons. Pick Your Poison, which seems really good in this queue, being able to hit there's a lot of flyers in here, especially in blue. So being able to hit a Null Drifter or a Murktide Regent or an Archon of Cruelty seems great in addition to the artifact and enchantments. Then we have Ghost Quarter, which when there's a lands deck in here and there's a lot of powerful man lands, like we were just talking about, 26, plus other really good utility lands like Valakut, that seems like a really high pick. Plow Under. Gosh, I've had my life ruined by this card. Nothing feels worse than a turn 3 when they plow under you and you're just drawing the 2 lands. I'm like, I'm scooping. I'm out. Get me out. 3 green, put 2 target lands on top of their owner's library. Oh my gosh, that's a card. And then we have Pia and Kieran Nalaar. 2 red, 2/2. You get 2 Thopters when it enters. You can sack an artifact to deal 2 to any target. Dualcaster Mage, 1 red, 2/2 flash. When it enters, you can copy an instant or sorcery. Are there any infinites of that in here?
I don't believe so. There might be with Ephemerate.
No Ghostly Flicker.
No Ghostly Flicker, so it's probably not any infinites. It's strictly essentially a counterspell in this cube.
Yeah, sounds good. And then we have Planar Genesis, blue-green instant. Look at the top 4. You can put a land on the battlefield or put a card in the hand, either way. The Celestis. Oh boy, there's Day Night. Ooh. 3-mana legendary artifact becomes day when it enters, and you can add a mana, and if it's night, you can make it day, and vice versa. And whenever it becomes night or night becomes day, you gain a life, and you can draw a card and discard a card. Then we have Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, which we were just talking about. Enters tapped. If you have 5 mountains, you can deal 3 to anything whenever a mountain enters. I love this card in Rakdos Cube. It's so fun. Just playing fair Valakut. It's so good.
It's the best red 1-drop in the cube.
The best red 1-drop in the cube. And there is Dryad the Elysian Grove. So that's pretty strong. That's pretty sweet. Then we have Gonti, Lord of Luxury. 2 black, 2/3 Death Touch. And when it enters, look at the top 4 of an opponent's library. Put 1 into exile and you can cast it. This card's a classic. And blinking this thing, man, that feels good. Then we have Negate. 1 and a blue, counter non-creature spell. And Celestial Colonnade, classic. Blue-white, man land enters tapped, becomes a Sarah Angel, basically. Really good card. What do you think of this pack? We were talking before that I don't think there's any cards that are the obvious pick in here.
I love this cube, and I love designing it. My least favorite thing about this cube is I feel so anxious when I see a pack 1 pick 1. Because I want all the cards at the same time, and I have such anxiety about not getting the other ones. Because you can make a case for probably 7 cards on here to be your pack 1 pick 1, honestly. There's a lot of things in here you're like, oh, I put this in my deck no matter what. Like Undercity Sewers, just having a fetch surveillance so powerful. Chrome House Sea Shark, just being such an efficient threat in this cube is very powerful. It's close on the chopping block. The reason why it's not is because for my 3C or less threats that actually will win you the game, it doesn't do anything when it enters or dies. If you just cast on turn 3 and then they kill it, you don't get anything. But yeah, it's a very powerful card. Subtlety is just always, it's subtlety. Pick Your Poison is very strong in this cube. It's a very efficient removal and very flexible. It's a sneaky card. Ghost Quarter's in there. Ghost Quarter actually replaced Wasteland recently.
Ooh, Wasteland's good.
Wasteland's too oppressive in this cube. I have 70 non-basics in here.
There's also Tectonic Edge too in here.
I know, it's so... I needed land removal, but Wasteland was way too strong. That's a good first pick. Negate's always good. The Celestis, I know you were making fun of Day Night, but I feel like...
Oh, this card is not bad, especially when people are just passing and then you get it to flip really quick. There's so much control.
Yeah, I wish it was a different mechanic besides Day Night, because I love
Sharpie that out.
Just Sharpie it out. I wish, because it's such a great control. It's mana advantage, card draw, looting, getting through your deck to see the cards. It's just such a great card. But I think my pack 1 pick 1 is just Celestial Colonnade, because that's my favorite control finisher. It's fixing. I don't think you can convince my irrational self to not take Celestial Colonnade.
To be honest, I'm really tempted to just destroy some idiots with Plow Under and just ruin some lives.
Really, you consider Pac-Man pick one? Wow. Okay.
Plow
It's a
Under and then like Jace Vryn's Prodigy, flash it back, Snapcaster Mage, flash it back. Just make my opponent never want to play Magic again. Like, just I want them to go home angry. That's what I'm saying.
your Pac-Man pick was a 5 mana sorcery.
I don't think I'm taking it, but I'm tempted. This card ruins lives. I'm not
It
kidding. If
does.
you haven't played with this card, careful with this card.
You gotta be. I wanted there to be some scary things that are like, oh, this is. I mean, it's so easy to counter. I mean, there's over 50 counter spells. There's so many ways to handle a 5 mana sorcery. If you let your guard down, I wanted some cards to be able to just punish hard your opponent. So that's why
Yeah.
it's in there.
But subtlety just seems really good to me.
Subtlety's great. Yeah, it's
Being
a
able to
little
play
less
for free and also being a 3/3 flyer, it's great.
I mean, it's a great card. Obviously, it's one of the other ones. I think my picks would be either Celestial Colonnade, Subtlety, or the Celestis. Honestly, I feel like Mana Advantage is so powerful, but I think Subtlety is not as good in this cube as you would expect, just because like there's less creatures than a normal cube.
It's
But it's still
Planeswalkers.
it does hit Planeswalkers. That is true. It does hit Planeswalkers, and that does help its case a lot. So yeah, I can see that being pack one, pick one easily. This pack
Yeah.
is so great. I love it. I mean, I also see a world where I pick Planar Genesis and just force blue green and hope to wheel Plow Under. But yeah, I'm taking Celestial Colonnade and hoping to wheel Celestis.
That's pretty good. I mean, you turn to Planar Genesis, get the extra land in a play, and then you ruin their lives. But
You wanted ways to deal with Nephalia Dranya. There you go, right there.
that's true. And
Yeah,
Kyle, it's been awesome having you on the show. Always a pleasure to talk to you. It was fun having you over at my house recently for some Chaos Draft 2.
oh, my deck was so bad. Jesus. I won the O2 match, though. I'm happy. I beat Elder Dingus Highlander in the O2 match.
You
It was
beat
a lot of
the
fun.
Elder
I
Dingus.
built the yeah. It was our decks were so bad. I won with a 4 mana 3/3 flyer. That was great.
My deck was also really weird, just like Jund stuff. But I had that combo with Strionic Resonator, and that you couldn't pay me to tell you the name of that saga from
The
Assassin's
one
Creed.
that
I have no idea what that
exiles a
card does.
card and then you put counters on it due to the mana value, and then you return to hand. That card is stupid. It made
That
two
card's
2020s.
crazy. Yeah, because you can copy the exile from the graveyard, so you get two things from the grave, and you can copy the put counters. So I was like putting like 20 counters on stuff, and then I had Corey Steel Cutter to be able to give trample. Oh my god,
Stupid.
that deck was disgusting when it did that one thing.
Oh, it was so bad. And I drafted some Mardu mid-range, just terrible pile. Ugh. It was
Chaos
not. It was
Draft is
not.
awesome.
It was a lot of fun. I feel like I forced it, and I wasn't. I wasn't reading the signals. It's my bad.
Anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
CubeCon, make sure you see the control cube vote in. Voting for all of Ian's cubes. The Band Cube, what do you put in? Band Cube, Trinket Cube, and the Proliferate Cube. The Proliferate Cube is my favorite cube of yours. It's one of the most unique cubes I've ever played. There's a lot of fun interactions with counters, and it's very fun. It's very unique. Make sure you vote for those. Yeah, the Control Cube. If you love control beers, if you love having fun, controlling the game, then this is the right cube for you.
And you love plow undering people.
You love doing all that stuff.
Well, thank you all for listening. Thanks again, Kyle, for coming on. And please like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you all next week for some more Cube. And have a great day.
Thank you Ian, for having me.